Good evening. My name's Anthony Norberto, and over the course of the past 10 months, I've worked extensively with Binghamton University Archives and Special Collections, SUNY Broome Archives, and the Village of Johnson City to compile a highly detailed outline of the industrial history of the village. Being that we are currently sitting where the first Leicestershire boot and shoe factory, later known as the Pioneer Factory, once stood, I felt it was only fitting to talk today a small portion of the research I have compiled regarding the establishment of corporations such as the Endicott Johnson Corporation. So leading up to the development of or establishment of the Endicott Johnson Corporation, George F. Johnson, one of the company's founders, he began working as a foreman for the Lester Brothers and Company in 1882. Now, during this time, the Lester Brothers and Company, they were located in Binghamton, and they had already expanded to two locations, one being the north side of Court Street and the other being Washington Street. Looking to expand further, George F. Johnson, with his background growing up in Massachusetts and working in factories as a child, he felt that Binghamton was becoming overpopulated, too industrialized, and overall wasn't a good place for workers to be working 6 days a week. So he proposed the alternative idea of moving to the nearly undeveloped Leicestershire. And in 1888, Harry Lester, who was the heir of the Lester Brothers and Company, he ended up purchasing about 11 acres of land from Francis B. Allen, who was the son of Samuel Allen, the first settler of the village. This, as well as the fact that Binghamton's property taxes were a lot higher than the villages at the time, but people give credit to George Johnson for that. And this photo just shows a early picture of the Leicestershire Boot and Shoe Factory. This is now what is now Fats Alley, and this is Baldwin Street here. This picture was taken from 1900. So moving forward, about 2 years later, 1890, the Leicestershire factory is built on Corliss Avenue, right where pretty much where we're sitting here today. And at the time, about 1,000 pairs of shoes were made daily. Now, that same year, with the establishment of the factory, other companies began coming to the area, such as the Fats Brush and Felt Company, which later just became known as the Felters Company after they merged with other felter manufacturers in the area. And this was established at the end of Corliss Avenue and end of Arch Street, which is that stone building. Now that wasn't the original factory that was built. Over the course of several years, the Felters Company constructed buildings. That building at the end was constructed in 1898, so several years after the original one was built. But the company was a staple of the community for decades after. And this is just another alternative view of the Leicestershire factory from 1890. So nearly a decade later, we see a lot of growth and development. Here's a picture, again, Baldwin Street, Fats Alley, the Felters Company. This used to be JC Publishing over here. And you can see the growth of the company with the extension onto Arch Street. So in 1899, George F. Johnson, after some management issues, some financial issues, the Lester brothers ended up having to sell their company, and Henry Bay Endicott of Boston ended up purchasing about half the stock in the company, or more than half the stock, majority shareholder. And most people don't realize this, but Henry B. Endicott really wasn't present in the community. He was rather just a source of funding. And because of his lack of absence, he appointed George F. Johnson as superintendent and manager of the company. And during this time, the company became prosperous, and in 1899, George F. Johnson ended up purchasing half the stock in the company. And this is how the Endicott Johnson Corporation was formed. Excellent. So with the establishment of the Endicott Johnson Corporation, I just thought it was also important to note other prominent companies such as Ansco Camera Works, which John showed before, the aerial photo of that factory that was torn down where Oslid used to be. That used to be originally Ansco Camera Works. And they were established there, that factory, in 1910. And then later, General Anline and Film Corporation, they were the parent company of a prominent German manufacturer company, Agfa Berlin, and they ended up purchasing Ansco in 1928, and that's when Ansco became Agfa Ansco. And then later on, the Oslid Corporation became merged with the Ansco, Agfa Ansco, and they later became known as the Oslid division of Ansco. And then also in 1912, a couple years later, you have the establishment of what is now, a driving force of the community in that of Wilson Memorial Hospital. It was originally the King's Daughter Hospital, but then after doctors Charles and William Wilson purchased it, they changed it to Leicestershire Hospital, and they relocated it to 47 Harrison Street. And then also in 1912, that same year, you had the first Endicott Johnson factory built outside of the main industrial hub, and that was built on Avenue C, and that used to be an old box factory, and it was later known as the Mrs. and Children's Factory. And this photo you can see, this is the Delaware-Lackawanna Railroad, and looking towards Corliss here, the back of Ansco.